When a narcissist stops mirroring you and you go silent, and they expect you to chase, but you don't, the psychological impact on them is far deeper than people realize. It's one of the few moments where their internal structure gets shaken. And here's what's happening. Their strategy assumes that you will panic. And when you remain silent, you break the script. The narcissist's withdrawal, it isn't passive. It's a test and a trap. Do they need me? Will they try to win my attention back? Will they fight for the connection I created? Is my control secure? When you don't chase, you violate their psychological model of relationships, and they lose their footing. It creates cognitive dissonance in them. You're supposed to react, so why aren't you reacting? So that thought alone creates anxiety. And then your silence triggers their core wound, which is they're irrelevant. And narcissists, they can't tolerate feelings of being unimportant, unimpactful, replaceable, forgettable. And your lack of response becomes that narcissistic injury, a wound to their imagined power and a threat to their identity. They won't think of your absence like, oh, maybe you're hurt. What they do think is, why aren't they proving that? Why aren't you proving that they matter? And your silence confirms the thing they fear the most, which is they don't have the power they believed they had over you. And then, of course, they begin to feel out of control. And control for the narcissist is emotional oxygen. When they expect you to chase and you don't, the oxygen gets cut off. And their internal reaction is something like, agitation, internal scrambling, that sense of panic masked as anger, humiliation, and disbelief. And of course, they have that pressure to try to regain the upper hand. And they just kind of cycle back and forth. They cycle from thinking, fine, they don't care anyway, to what do they have to do to rehook you back in? And the thing is, they rely on your pursuit to maintain their grandiose self-image. Because narcissists need proof that they're special. And usually your chase provides that proof. But when you don't chase, it forces them to confront that the mirror they created is gone, that they don't have control over your emotional state, that they have miscalculated, and they're not as central to your world as they had assumed. And that's ego death for them. Not literal death, but it's a psychic blow. And it's not uncommon for them to spiral into confusion, because the mirroring phase should have bonded you. Because narcissists believe their mirroring works on everyone. And when their mirroring doesn't work, they feel insulted, confused, threatened, curious, angry, challenged, a real cocktail of emotions. And to them, the bonding should have been enough to secure you. But your detachment reads as defiance, resistance, disrespect. It's like, in their mind, they're thinking to themselves, oh, do you think you're above me? And that whole kind of thought process destabilizes them. And then, so often they try to reassert power in one of several predictable ways. When you stay silent, they could respond with things like hoovering attempts. They may appear saying like, hey, how have you been? Or I've been thinking about you. Or maybe they say how they've missed what you had. They just want to see if they can reel you back in. And triangulation often features as well, where someone new comes into the picture, where they try to provoke some jealousy. And then they have that undercurrent of rage. But a lot of times narcissists disguise their rage as indifference. that kind of cold hostility, passive-aggressive behavior, flaunting how happy they are. And then, of course, sometimes they just stay silent much longer. But when you're not chasing the narcissist, and they were expecting, the narcissist is never comfortable in silence. It's just a smokescreen. They're waiting to see if you break, but they're suffering. And of course, they like to undertake surveillance. They watch your social media. They ask about you. They're lurking around trying to gather cues, trying to assess your emotional state. They basically want to know if they still exist in your mind. And here's the truth of the matter. Your silence is more powerful than their silence. Because the narcissist's silence is a tactic, but your silence is a boundary. So one is manipulation and the other is liberation. And when you don't chase, you flip the dynamic. Their control shrinks, their certainty cracks, their grandiosity deflates, their fantasy dissolves. Their entitlement is challenged and their internal wound is exposed. And you become that one thing they can't easily manipulate. And that both fascinates them, but it also infuriates them.